had lost my mother, and they came to console. And I really love this man. The other day he was promoted. He's now the president of the big office. And without much ado, let's appreciate Justice Musinga.
Please be seated. Okay. Wow. Mr. George Ashuri, CEO Optiven Group. Bishop Phillips Katutu, thank you for your good message. All the directors of Optiven Group, the staff, very good presentation that you've made, and a very good MC for today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening once more.
Good evening.
When I received an invitation from my friend George Washiri to be the guest of honor in this wonderful function, I wondered why he would pick a person like me, because I am not a developer, I am not a business person, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not a corporate titan. I simply administer justice in our country. And so I wondered, how do I fit in such a setup? But like all good citizens, I have keen interest in our laws, our policies, practices that affect our economic development, the social order, the way we do business in our country. And therefore, it is in that line that I'll be making a few remarks. But before I do so, let me congratulate you most heartily, George, and not only Mr. Washuri, the entire Optiven Group, for what you have achieved by God's grace. When I came here, before we started, I was seeing I was watching this screen and just seeing the footprint of Optiven across the world. And I said, yes, that is a great achievement. And we truly are proud of what God has enabled you to do. You know, buying a property in a gated community with developed infrastructure, as we have seen here, it's no mean achievement. It's something to be proud of. I know many Kenyans who have bought properties in many places, but they are unable to develop them. They have not started doing anything years after buying them because they are still waiting for infrastructural developments to be brought near them. But Mr. Ashuri, I have visited 3 of your flagship properties. And so I speak not because I've seen these photos here, but because I have personally seen and witnessed what Optiven is doing in adding value to those properties that you are enabling Kenyans and people with the diaspora to acquire. The opening of this global office is in itself a testimony of the phenomenal growth of this company that has won the confidence of many local and foreign investors. And why has Optiven succeeded where many have failed? In one of his many addresses to the media that I came across, Mr. Washiri is quoted as having said as follows, and I quote, "At Optiven, we do not promise what we cannot deliver. The secret of our growth is keeping our word and integrity." End of quote. So ladies and gentlemen, this evening I want to speak briefly about integrity of the middle class and its effects in economic development. Allow me to just go through some thoughts that I put down in writing. In this country, we've been told that about 1/3 of the country's budget is lost to corruption. And that is a huge amount of money. Investors have often complained that pervasive corruption is one of the biggest obstacles to investment, and that is true. Many times we are quick to blame public servants, but we hardly apportion any blame to ourselves, the private sector players, and the ordinary mwananchi. We, however, know that it takes two to tango. The truth of the matter is that corruption has pervaded all sectors of our economy, both public and private. Although many believe that it is the super wealthy who are largely to blame for corruption in Africa, research has shown that the biggest culprit is the middle class. And in a well-researched paper by Norman I.D. Avisa, M.A. Awia, B.M. Kweku, and B. Binka, titled "The Middle Class is Synonymous with Corruption in Sub-Saharan Africa." This is what the learned authors concluded, and I quote, "The middle class are the gatekeepers of policy design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. They control service delivery and occupy middle to upper level management positions in public and private enterprises. They provide the bulk of the academic and intellectual resources and capacities for education. The effects of their conduct in professional role may substantially contribute to the erosion of responsible moral conduct and professional ethics in the delivery of services and in the lives of the population. The middle class is engaged in a deadly game of catching up with the Mensas. In the Kenyan context, we can say the Mutuas, the Njoroges, the Kamaus, the Onyangos, and so on. Whatever Mensa has, even if he acquires it illegally and through corrupt means, everyone in Mensa's neighborhood, irrespective of religion, social antecedents, and professional ethics, wants to be like Mensa. Such conduct does not consider the moral and legal duty of care of the middle class to the population, guided by ethical principles. End of quote. I entirely agree with those findings. In almost all the financial scandals in this country, there are middle class persons involved, be it a procurement officer, an accountant, a lawyer, a banker, a land registrar, name it. We are there as the middle class professionals. The middle class in Kenya accounts for about 25% of the population. The middle class has the most educated people with connections and friendships in all sectors of the economy. People who are well exposed to different cultures across the world and therefore well informed. A class of the society that is at the center of all economic activities in this country. And most of us, if not all of us here, fall within this population bracket. The middle class has the greatest potential to impact, whether positively or negatively, the socio-economic development of this country. The middle class is a trade center in our urban centers, especially in lifestyles and social order. And therefore, what you see in the city of Nairobi and many other urban centers has largely been influenced by the middle class. And I say it whether positively or negatively. And let me cite a bad example. And I will illustrate this with Buruburu Estate in Nairobi. Developed between 1973 and 1979 or thereabout, Buruburu Estate was touted to be the most modern middle-class housing estate, not only in Kenya, but in Africa. It was funded by the Commonwealth Development Corporation, and it was the most preferred residential address for most young graduates from the only university in Kenya, University of Nairobi, those days. Buruburu Estate had beautiful courts, well-tarmacked roads, gardens, playing areas for children, shopping centers, name them. And I speak from personal experience because in the late 70s, I resided there with one of our family members. And I know how it was. Picture this. On 31st of March 1987, Prince Charles visited the estate when he toured Kenya. The government was proud to showcase it as a flagship project under the funding of the Commonwealth Development Bank. Most of the houses there were sold to the middle class through the Housing Finance Company of Kenya, HFCK, as it was then known. And here, I'm happy to hear there is a representative here. Buruburu Estate was the most prestigious place for a middle-class person to live. In our days at the university, it was the dream place to own or to live as a young graduate. But fast forward to the 1990s, unlawful extensions began to emerge. The owners, mostly the middle class, bribed city council officials to unlawfully acquire building permits for extensions. With the support of local politicians, they started grabbing most of the open spaces for construction of all manner of houses. The roads were neglected, water supply considerably reduced. And the Buruburu of today is a pale shadow of its former self. Property values have considerably come down. And the sad thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that this is all attributable to lack of integrity, to corruption by largely the middle class. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of Buruburu Estate is replicated in many other public projects, be they roads, water, or even housing projects. Why is it that we cannot apply our great potential to positively impact our nation? Why is it that a great number of people in this class are cutting corners by engaging in corruption or condoning corruption? Could it be true, or could it be due to the social pressure to move from the middle class to the upper class, where we think the people have arrived, in quotes? I ask us, the middle class, what is our reaction to Paul's first letter to Timothy at chapter 6 verse 10, that the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil? Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. What values are we inculcating in our children as they grow up, and particularly in their formative years when they are in primary and secondary schools? We may not want to say it, but the level of petty stealing that I have seen in most of our public schools is of great concern to me. And I say so. Two of my children, having gone through top national schools, and I ask myself, these dear children of ours, whom we have taken to top national schools and are going to be the leaders of tomorrow, and we are talking of incidents of theft almost on a daily basis, either of books, uniform, money, name it. And I ask myself, could it be the breeding ground of the grand corruption that we are going to see shortly after our sons and daughters have left those schools, gone to university, and started working, started doing business? I don't know. Until very recently, many parents were financially facilitating leakage of national exams so that their sons and daughters could get the best grades and therefore qualify for admission to national universities to study the most preferred courses that are believed to be lucrative. What is the net effect of that for a class of people that will be the fulcrum of a country's social, political, and economic development? It's of great concern to me. I know it's of great concern to many of you here because you are virtuous people. I therefore commend companies like Optiven and many of you here who have chosen to work and do business ethically. From what we have heard, I've seen the testimonies of many of your customers. Long before I knew you, George, I had read your wonderful books and fallen in love with the values that you espouse. And I believe it is the same values that you have inculcated in your staff, and no wonder God is taking you places. As I commend Optiven and those of us here who have chosen to work ethically, do business ethically, I want to throw a challenge at us and say that is not enough. I pose this question: what more individually or corporately can you and I do to make our country a better place? There is something extra that each one of us can do, whether it is to be a whistleblower of all the things that are not going right in our country, in our city, holding us public and state officers to account for the things that we do. It was managed and organized, and strict adherence to the city's bylaws, this would be a wonderful city, a wonderful place to live in. And all those other places that you are developing out there, look at the kind of order that we've seen there in all those flagship projects. Well, manicured gardens. I wish every part of Nairobi urban centers were like that. Why is it that today we have cattle roaming in Nairobi, even outside the gates of State House? It is a shame. And we need to rise up as middle class and play the appropriate role of demanding good services, strict adherence to our laws, the bylaws that govern this city and other urban centers, if we want to see Nairobi, Kenya, our cities, our urban centers, orderly, neat as they ought to be. But we have to lead by example. The developed and the wealthy countries that we admire, and we have seen them, and we love to visit or migrate to, countries where systems work and where the rule of law is supreme, were built by patriotic and hard-working middle class that positively influence the lower and the upper middle classes of the populace to make those countries the way they are. Why are we just running there and not wanting to replicate that in our own country? The power to change Kenya for better is within you and I, ladies and gentlemen. God bless Optiven. God bless Kenya. God bless all of us. Let's do something to make our city, our country great. Thank you.